Carried, thank you. Item 8, the National Policy Statement on Urban Development 2022 Work Programme. I'll ask David Emmentley to come forward and present this paper. Thank you.
Kia ora. So this report outlines the work programme and timelines for community consultation and council decision making for the district plan changes. They're required to give effect to the National Policy Statement on Urban Development and the Enabling Housing Supply Bill. A range of plan changes are needed and will be decided this year. We anticipate that the implementation of the NPS-UD and the Enabling Housing Supply Bill will be of significant interest to our communities. There are aspects of this that do require decisions to be made, and it's valuable for us to engage with our communities as early as possible on these matters. The proposed timeline for consultation and decisions is set out in the report, with the first decision required on the 31st of March. By law, we are required to notify these plan changes by 20th of August 2022. Therefore, today, we seek your endorsement of the work programme and the timeline set out.
Thank you. Councillor Finklin's moved. Do I have a seconder? Tim, seconder. Is there any questions on the work programme, Tim? Tim's with. Thanks, Tim. Yeah. Tim's got a question.
Thank you. Some of the questions I'm getting from the community are around the character areas. So can you just explain, so because we're being live streamed, the process, so we've still got to go, when we make these changes, to go back to the government to have them accepted, or can we do this as a council? Because specifically people have got moved to a character, or are lucky enough to be in a character area, and they're worried about, say, two-storey apartments being built on their north boundary, that type of thing.
Yes, so this is a new process that's been set out under the Enabling Housing Supply legislation, and it's similar to a streamlined planning process. The difference between the process set out and a streamlined planning process is that council has more decision-making roles. So the steps through this process will be appointing an independent hearings panel. So the council staff evidence will go to that hearings panel. The hearings panel will make a recommendation back to council on the material that they've heard and the plan changes. Council then has the opportunity to accept or reject the recommendations from the independent hearings panel. If council accepts the recommendations from the independent hearings panel, then that is the end of the story there, and it can go through as a normal plan change would. For the matters that council reject, as recommended by the hearings panel, that then gets put forward to the minister to make a final decision. So
that would be, say, if something is seen as adversarial to the NPS-UD.
So the minister, the role that the minister will play will only be on matters where there is disagreement between council and the recommendation from the independent hearings panel. So provided that for the matters that council support and agree with the independent hearings panel, that won't then go forward to the minister. That will be finished.
Okay, thank you.
Jimmy?
Okay, thank you. The paragraph 5.3 regarding to the proposed milestone and dates of this program, a particular focus on the pre-notification engagement and notification engagement. This time period will be the kind of overlap with the draft annual plan time period, whether staff consider can combine together for the engagement or consultation.
The annual plan engagement is offered under separate legislation, so we would have to make sure that the engagement that we're providing is related to the Resource Management Act. We are aligning our engagement periods as much as we can with other work programs to try and facilitate and provide that broader story to our communities. So, we'll be working with the comms team quite closely on how we manage to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yanni.
Thank you. And, thank you for the suggestion that we do pre-notification and engage our community. But can you give, just at a high level, a sense of the things that we'll be seeking feedback on?
We're still working through those matters, and we will bring those to council. We have a briefing organised on the 1st of March, so we're just preparing our documents at the moment, and we'll take those through to you at a later date.
Right, but just I think that when you read this report, like it talks about the process around engagement and decision making, but it doesn't give people a sense of what actually we're going to be asking people. Is it the areas that are fit for development? Is that basically the key thing that we're going to do? Which areas should have more intensification?
Yeah. So a lot of the decisions are prescribed as part of the NPS-UD. So what we're looking at is where it's possible to make decisions. Some of those decisions are in the detail of how we implement the NPS-UD, and some of those details are in the extent that we go when we implement the NPS-UD, so how much we do. And that comes back to those conversations we were having last year on that do a little, do some, do a lot. So there is an aspect of that, which is the kind of how far do you go, and then there is also some of the detail and how we implement it.
But we are looking to bring the draft plan change out for consultation. It is a very tight time frame, so we're endeavouring to put to the public as much as we can. But yeah, as Emily has highlighted, it's actually quite a lot that is out of our control. That the NPS-UD has already stated quite clearly we must do this, or the Enabling Housing Bill. So whilst we will be able to put stuff out to the public, actually, and we'll make it very clear, this is what has been determined by legislation, and this is where there is actually feedback will actually influence the decision. And unfortunately, that will be the smaller part. A lot of this has already been determined, and you'll be able to read that through the legislation. That it's 3 stories, three per property across most of the city is what the legislation says already. So it's a lot of this has already been determined.
Thank you, Yanni.
I guess the question for what I'm concerned about is if we go up for a pre-notification engagement, which I support, that we're basically going to generate a whole bunch of submissions and engagement on things that we have no control over.
So we're working very closely with the comms team on that, and with our engagement teams to make sure that we are as clearly articulating that as we can to the public, so that it's clear what they can engage on and what's going to add value to this process.
And is there an option, the final question from me, is there an option just to let the government do this to us, given that it's pretty much what's been happening to date? Like, do we have to do this? Like, what happens if we don't do it and we say it's not something we agree with, and if the government wants to do it, fine, they do it, but we're not doing it?
No, this is a statutory requirement, so we have no choice. We must do it, and it would be up to the government to make a decision if we didn't do it. But we are required by statute to do it.
Okay. Did you want to add something, Glenn?
Yeah.
Yes, it may be helpful.
There are a number of processes in the Local Government Act for the government to place the commissioner or replace the entire council if they're not complying with their statutory duties. So that's the reality, is that one way or t'other it will be done.
Yep. Thank you. Tim, then Pauline.
Look, you guys have articulated it very well, and I just want to reiterate, it's about when you talk with our communications team, it's about keeping the integrity of our consultation. And so I think first and foremost, we've got to make it clear what we're consulting on, why, and what we can consult on, because I think there's a lot of confusion about what we can do and what we can't do. So I think that's absolutely paramount for what we do, because there are going to be a lot of people that want changes that we have no control on, and we've got to make it clear what we're doing.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll raise a better understanding, because there are a lot of people feeling like we've just been shafted, but there's different views on that, but we've got to make it very clear from our side of things, because when we do go out and consult for other things, we've got to keep our integrity of what we can do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Tim. Pauline.
That was a brilliant question. I'm just wondering, in the timeline, when does the independent hearings panel meet? Have I missed it? Can't find it.
So the independent hearings panel hasn't been appointed yet. The appointment and the meeting will be following notification.
So somewhere after May.
After the 20th
Oh,
of
after.
August.
Hang on. No, after this committee approves notification on the 7th of July. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
And then this thing comes into effect 20th of August.
Oh, so the statutory deadline is simply to try and notify by the 20th of August. We're preempting that and going to the 7th of July Urban Development and Transport.
I thought it took effect from the 20th of August, these new rules.
It will take effect from the date of notification. So when we notify, the documents will have immediate legal effect.
But, so just to clarify, so we must notify by the 20th of August. Then the government is wanting the hearings process and all the submissions process and everything to be done within a year of that. So by essentially 20th of August 2023. The complicating factor is that the Enabling Housing Bill also says that the enabling housing provisions will have a legal effect from the 20th of August, or from the date of notification. So if we do it earlier, it'll be even earlier. So that will happen before there's any independent hearings panel process. So the 3 stories, 3 problems and 3 stories. As soon as council makes a decision that this is where that applies, and that's notified, that will have legal effect. So people can will be able to start using those rules. There's a bit of a process that they'll have to go through, and that'll be even before the independent hearings panel is met. So things will start having effect pretty soon.
So that's a hard one to explain to the public.
It is very hard. Yes.
And the other thing is that when we agree to notify, which I assume that's a compulsory decision we have to make as well, are we allowed to put our recommended suggested changes in there at that time, and that part that is notified?
So
in other words, can we notify our tweaked version, let's say?
Well, what we'll be putting to you is what we must do. So what the legislation says that we have no choice in. So we will have to do that.
Yeah. And
then there'll be some areas where we can influence it. So essentially, I mean, the baseline is what the Enabling Housing Bill has said. 3 stories everywhere.
Yep.
Essentially, I mean, there'll be some areas which will have qualifying matters, which we can have some
control on. But if the hearings panel decided to uphold some of our suggestions that we would pick up from the people of Christchurch when they, feed back to us, that won't come into effect until possibly August 2023.
That's right.
And you could actually say there'd be a mad dash to run the full gauntlet in 1 year before any changes are reduced or any restrictions come in on, anything. I mean, that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just working through that at the moment. What will take legal effect this year, and what we'll go through the independent hearings panel. But yes, there is will be a complex time over the next year, because you'll have different rules that have different legal effect.
Okay, so can I just suggest that when we perhaps cobble something together for the public, that we perhaps do some sort of a flow chart or some sort of a visual?
Yes.
Because I'm struggling with this. I've been reading it for months. Thank you.
Yes.
It's Pauline, Leanne.
The real question is the qualifying matters, because that's where I think the meat lies, and I think a lot of people will want to submit on that, and so sort of focusing the encouragement for feedback from residents is around the sort of technical elements of the qualifying matters. I really would think that our council could bend over backwards to assist people to provide submissions that are helpful to get those specific areas absolutely nailed down.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you're right. The reason where there is more ability for council to make decisions is around qualifying matters, and also the areas that will go above 3 stories. But in saying that, there is quite strict criteria in the legislation and in the national policy statement. So it's not completely open to have qualifying matters wherever we choose. It is quite tight. So
Yeah.
we've just got to bear that in mind.
Yeah,
when we make this.
and the other point was the the landscaping requirements were changed in the legislation.
Yes.
I think as a result of our submission and others as well. But that's also going to have to be reinforced in the process.
Yes.
I mean, people I think do have a higher level of expectation about areas that are just street by street without those street trees and things like that. So, and that's maybe something we need to pick up in the tree policy. I mean, the urban forest. It's not so much that; it's just the public realm trees for new subdivisions. Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Carried.
Thank you.
Right, item